everyone, welcome. My name is Alonda Carter and I am the Recovering Hunbot, and this is Season 1, Episode 2 of Hey Hun, You Woke Up. This podcast is brought to you on 10 different platforms, including Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, and iTunes. The video version is on YouTube. If you would like to support me as an anti-MLM content creator, you can join my Patreon. There'll be a link to that in the description. I've made it very simple and created 3 tiers, all very reasonable, ranging from $1 to $10 a month. And if you're listening to me on Anchor, you can donate to me through listener support. Today's guest is Dave Vaughn, and he teaches English, European history, AP psychology, and social studies. Dave, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here. Welcome, Dave, and thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And I understand that you've never been in MLM, but you came into the world and you are also an advocate. You're more anti-MLM than MLM since you weren't in it because you saw problems with it. Go ahead and tell us about how you got into the world of MLM and how you started dissecting it.
Sure. So I first was introduced to MLM without even knowing it was MLM. My parents were invited to various parties, specifically my mom. A neighbor up the road was involved in Avon, Pampered Chef, Tupperware, a lot of the sort of 1990s, early 2000s explorations with MLM. But I didn't actually sort of get really involved in it until I moved to Taiwan. I was teaching English there in a high school. And I was making quite a few friends with Taiwanese. And one of the friendships that I'd had sort of was breaking down, and it didn't quite make sense to me why it suddenly just sort of went AWOL in a way. So I was trying to explore it a little bit more, try to understand what was happening, because the person was acting very differently from how I knew them. I knew they were involved in some sort of online shopping platform. They weren't very clear. And they were asking other people to join this program, and it wasn't obvious to me what it was. I came to learn it to be shop.com, which is a division of Market America. They have a variety of cosmetics and nutraceutical products that they sell. And he was all consumed by this endeavor, and he completely lost touch with me and many other people. He started to develop an idea that any time that he spent outside of that network or platform was a waste of time. He didn't really want to focus on friends anymore unless those friends were helping him with the business. Fun was sort of it wasn't fun unless he was making money, and this was very much against everything that I had come to know of this person as, and it felt so overwhelming. I tried to address the problem with him. I walked him through one of the court cases that was filed against the company, and he completely cast it aside. And he was telling me that his parents even brought up some of these experiences with him, and he told his parents, which this is very unheard of in Taiwanese society, to tell your parents either you're going to accept what I'm doing or I'm never talking to you again. That was sort of really earth-shattering for me in terms of realizing that this is much, much bigger than I understand it. And I did a lot of research because of that experience, because I knew that this person was going through an incredibly tough time in their life to be making these drastic changes to their social structure. They were calling the network that they were building, that they had totally isolated themselves from other people, as their hub, which I found unusual. It wasn't a common phrase that you would use with people that you had certainly discovered as something that was sort of positive as an experience. So it worried me, and as I came to know more about Market America, I came to know more about Herbalife, Beachbody, Avon, all the others, and how many of them intersect in terms of their compensation plans, the methods in which they recruit individuals, the methods in which they retain those individuals. And I just felt like I couldn't just leave this one person that I knew out in the dark and just try one attempt. I needed to sort of better understand the whole situation. So I I've invested hours and days and months into better understanding this problem and trying to convey that understanding to others.
And how do you feel that people are responding to you now in terms of, you explaining it to them?
Well, the friend has completely lost touch with me, and I've tried to interact with them on repeated occasions, as well as I've become more familiar with their upline as well as some of the people in their downline, just to sort of reach out to them and let them know, like, hey, I am concerned about you. I've seen you do some remarkable things in other points in your life, and I think that you have the absolute potential to do well in business if you're applied in the proper manner. But I really must caution you on this endeavor because it is very worrisome. Here's some statistics that I have regarding this. This is the compensation plan and the income statements that they've released. I would like to talk this out with you, and I welcome you to share the opportunity that you understand it as with me, but I never do get that sort of experience. They typically cast me aside or say, like, oh, you're such a genius, you understand everything about this plan. I know nothing. I guess I'm just in a pyramid scheme, it doesn't matter. And I don't want to characterize it as something that it is common in people, because I haven't seen that before, but it was common among many people that I had met in Taiwan when you sort of came at them with this problem is that they sort of build you up in a way that's condescending and just sort of make you feel like they're not listening at all to anything that I'm saying. And I still feel the need and guilt to try to help, because I know it's damaging their life in a lot of ways, and it's damaging other people that they're bringing in because they're convinced that it's helping. It's changing their life for the better. And it's not, when you look at it in any sort of financial, time, social aspect of it. But they just see it in terms of what they're being told by the company and the people that have trained them, and what they're now saying to other people that they're now training. And it feels so upsetting. So I'm not defeated by it, because I feel like these are good people, and I still know them as good people, but I just feel like they're so lost, and I can't give up on them just on that basis. I need to keep trying to find ways, perhaps not to work directly with them, but try to indirectly try to impact change and hopefully help not only them, but all the other people that are also in that very same situation.
Well, I think that's a good reason why you are coming on my channel and speaking out, because there are a lot of people who have complete misconceptions about multi-level marketing. Because and I was indoctrinated into it. I was a Beachbody coach, and I've said this often. It's like when you are in the thick of hunting, you can be on fire and deny the flames because you are so indoctrinated into the system, and it doesn't matter what anybody's going to say to you, because
Right.
you know better. And it sounds like that's exactly what was going on with when you have approached people.
Right. Yeah, I foolishly, this was before I did research into cult-like organizations, and I tried to bring it up with the one close friend that I had, and I was saying, like, you have to look at J.R. Redinger, who is the founder, and you can't deny that he certainly displays characteristics that are very questionable. And I attacked him, which I should never have done. Like, this is someone that, admittedly, because he's in Taiwan, he doesn't hold him up as like the godly figure that I suppose some people in America would, because he is more of a sort of champion of the American dream, not so much the same way that Taiwanese will ideal this person, but at the same way, because he is American, and he's a businessman, there is a level of respect that is afforded to people, especially overseas, to these like more sort of like the people who break through the international barrier. They're typically seen, like, even Donald Trump, even though people have concerns about him, but they still see him as a successful businessman, and that's how he's viewed overseas in a lot of areas for that sense. And J.R. Redinger, I would say, fits that mold as well. So it's I'm saying all that. I've lost my train of thought, but I do feel like um, I shouldn't have done that approach of coming up and attacking the person who was in the foundation. I should have spent more time listening. I went in with an agenda when I was trying to address the problem with him. I, Knowing what I know now, I would have never done that. My first approach should have
Hold
been
on a
to.
second. I'm getting like some real weird high pitched sound.
Oh,
And I'm getting static when you move across the
okay.
mic too.
I'm sorry. I was moving my hand as well. I should probably stop doing that.
Okay. Let's. That's better. It stopped there.
Okay.
Okay. It was just a really weird sound. Okay, I'm sorry. Tell me, who is this JR person that you mentioned?
So J.R. Redinger, he's the founder. It's
coming back. Wait, it's coming back. Maybe it's.
Let me move my setup around a little bit. I don't know if it's a table or whatnot.
Maybe if I even unplug, I'm going to unplug my headset and let me put some of the cushion around here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you okay.
Okay. All right, let me turn up the volume here. And move my keyboard because I'm so fancy.
No, don't worry.
Okay, so I'll try this with my mic here.
Sure. Am I still coming through in a strange way, or?
No, I'm not. I'm not hearing it. Maybe it was just from my headset. I don't know. And if people gripe about the sound, they're just going to have to bitch because you know what? It is what it is.
Yes, we'll do our best.
Anyway, okay. So
yes,
this person, JR, whoever, tell me who that person. I don't know that name, and I'm presuming he was the founder of this organization.
That's correct. So J.R. Redinger, he was a previous Amway distributor. I believe he worked his way up into that organization, as so many people do. It's not something that I shared with you, but I do have a history map of the MLM industry that I've interconnected many of the companies and where founders have come from. Many of them originate directly from Amway. This was sort of a evolution of the industry. J.R. Redinger is one of them. He partnered with his wife, Lauren Redinger. JR actually appears in John Oliver's segment. He's the Jim Jones type character that they show. He's the guy yelling at the gravestone, the Joe Nobody gravestone, about not living his life and not choosing this opportunity of MLM marketing, and the dimmer right that he was yelling about on stage. Like he was that character. He's definitely has that kind of, I don't know, he's more of a quiet person in normal life, but when he's up on that stage, that's his living, breathing nature. Like that's what he's living for every time he has that conference full of 23,000 people or however many people he has there. And he's gone to Taiwan as well to speak, where he's had a translator communicate his ideas to people in Taiwan. Like he certainly is someone who I think is completely absorbed by the idea that he's doing something sensational for the world, that he's innovated a new practice, and that he thinks that he's bringing the world something so valuable. I think that there are certainly whispers in his mind that he's doing something that is not good and it is damaging other people. But I think, like many of us, like if you talk to Mark Zuckerberg, he would say that Facebook has sort of revolutionized the world for the better. But I mean, you talk to someone on Capitol Hill, or you talk to Kara Swisher from Recode Media, like they will tell you that this is not good, and he could possibly be classified as a 21st century evil doer. But for those people that are doing those actions, they're not questioning themselves, and they can't, because that's going to erode their empire and their belief in themselves. And it's hard. Like it's not simple. It would be nice just to sort of cast them as an evil villain, but I find it difficult to have that kind of understanding of these founders. I think there's more complexity to it. I think they're consuming the false nature that they're sort of putting out. They're only absorbing the positive sort of benefits. Like, I've created 25 millionaires. Am I not the greatest person in the world? Are people not having parades in my honor for creating this business that created 25 millionaires? But he's forgetting about the 130,000 people that he's made lose money in order to make those millionaires possible. And that's kind of like the economics of the situation.
Yeah, I think people are at the top, the CEOs. I think they have to buy into the story. They have to buy into that what they're doing. They are servicing the world, if you will, and bringing something. For instance, in Beachbody, I'm positive Carl Deichler believes that what he's doing, it's like helping with the obesity trend, and definitely there is. The Beachbody workouts are great. The Shakeology, not so sure about that. The fact that there is, this MLM structure, that's to me horrible. If it was still just Beachbody, when they were just doing the infomercials and just getting the workouts, out there to the world, that would be one thing. But it's the addition of the MLM to it. And I want to say the motto is, now it's just going to slip from my head.
Okay.
But something about basically changing lives and, basically making everybody's life better through what they're offering. And so since he believes that, then the leaders have to believe that, and they have to perpetuate that, and anybody coming up has got to start believing that as well. And hopefully those people, to the leaders, will stay in as long as possible before they exit stage left.
And as a weight loss program, but many MLM corporations do so well in that area. It doesn't work for everyone, as most things do, but building that community of people that are sort of reliant on seeing you live a healthy lifestyle, and sort of that serving as a constant reminder of like, hey, I'm here with you. Like, let's go do our workouts together. Like, let's get those Instagram photos up so we can show our before and after, so we can get more people recruited into this business. Like, creating those extra layers of accountability to your health. I imagine that those have very substantial sort of benefits to people in terms of delivering on those results outside of Shakeology or any sort of supplement that you're taking. Just the fact that you have that community that's so sort of connected to a change that you want to make in your life, it is powerful in that way. But it's so disappointing that it comes at the cost of this MLM structure, that it is exploiting so many people.
Yeah, and that is the problem, is that although there's, I guess, under all of it, there's something kind of good, but then the overall structure is by far more damaging than the good that you are setting out to do. Now, I really want you to share with us, because I know you sent me some slides that you put together, which explains the economics of everything. And I really want to share that with my audience and have you walk us through that and explain it to us. Can you do that?
Sure. So I do have an economic model in here. I have a couple others that I will be able to share if the audience enjoys this take. I wanted to tailor it more towards just a general understanding of how we can conceptualize the industry, knowing that we're going into a new year in 2020. How can we sort of change some of the phrasing around it? Because we constantly get caught up in the trap of we talk to someone who's inside this organization or someone who's considering it. We mention a pyramid scheme. Some people are trained on how to handle that question, right? A lot of distributors know full well what a pyramid scheme is, but they want to get you to explain it so then they can give you their coined answer in terms of saying, well, you've got it all wrong. Actually, you're involved in a pyramid scheme, right? They want to give you that sort of element of confusion to sort of throw you off on your toes. And I kind of want to engage in a discussion of like, maybe we should change the way that we approach that initial conversation, to put them off their toes a little bit, and to be the one in the position where we're then explaining to them sort of what this concept is and why we are concerned that their organization fits that mold. So I took that approach, and I'm also going to explain an economic model with that. But yes, I can share my screen with you, and we can talk about what I have in mind.
Cool.
So this is a PDF format. It does go through the 4 models that I propose that we can sort of consider to use instead of the typical term pyramid scheme. We have an iceberg model and a pancake model down here below. These are two models that were proposed in John M. Taylor's work. John M. Taylor, I'll introduce him a little bit later, but he's done a tremendous amount of work for this industry. He did pass away last year, but the work that he's done is remarkable. And if you have the time, I definitely recommend checking out MLM Unmasked, but there's a lot of summary documents available as well. And then one sort of passing remark that I found rather interesting was the volcano model as well. So I'll walk through these four models. And if you have any questions, just let me know. So in walking through these four models, I want to make sure that people are sort of on the same page as to what my understanding is of the industry. So obviously MLMs, multi-level marketing companies, they operate through a mechanism of selling product to consumers. Ultimately, that is the ambition, one would hope, but because of the compensation plan and the structures and the various incentives in play, they ultimately are more incentivized to find more individuals to recruit into the company in order to advance their position and be more eligible for bonuses and whatnot. So that creates adverse problems, which is why organizations like the FTC are targeting MLM companies. TINA, which is an excellent organization that I have to call out, it's Truth in Advertising. They've done a lot of the work. The reason why the Neora suit was brought to the attention of the FTC was arguably because of much of the work that Truth in Advertising has done on that case. Neora is a skincare company. They originally were using a product called Miriam Oleander. I did a brief analysis of this company, and it's posted on Ethan Vanderbilt's blog. But essentially what it is Miriam Oleander is a type of poison. It's used to treat cancer patients, and they have extracted some of the essence of that and have turned it into a skin cream that makes wrinkles fade away. But essentially what's happening is that your skin is swelling in a micro manner and causing it to sort of puff up and appear as if the wrinkles are gone. But as I guess most miracle products go, it's not actually a miracle product. So there's a current case going on right now where the FTC is suing Neora. Neora, rather uncharacteristically, is also countersuing the FTC, accusing the FTC of overstepping its bounds and not properly evaluating what a pyramid scheme is. So it's an interesting case that's going to be worth watching. A lot of the companies that are using the MLM model, they're associated with a lobby group called the DSA, which is right here. The Direct Selling Association is rallying behind Neora because it's one of their own. Neora was a very fast-growing company and sort of showed the rather youthfulness of the market. People were sort of growing skeptical that MLMs were going to die in the internet age, and Neora was kind of their beacon of like, no, they're not. This company grew to $1 billion in under 4 years. So it's a great example of how it all works and how it still works as a formula. So all of these situations are going on in the background, but we still have this constant sort of problem of like, how is this working and why is this structure still existing? Given that most people are able to sort of identify it as a pyramid scheme, and you can find material like it on the internet if you search for it. But there's several sort of caveats and sort of being able to identify that on your own. There's also a landmark ruling out for the FTC in Advocare. They were able to shut down the business model that used the MLM structure. Advocare is now banned from doing so, and there's several members of their top tier group that's banned from doing MLM as well. So they can't move on to another company and open another empire in that way. So it was certainly a big win for the Federal Trade Commission on that. Is that okay to go ahead?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry to go through this big explainer, but I figured it was worth quickly running through some of this information. This is a collection of all the board members on the Direct Selling Association. I do want to point out the fact that this is an industry that claims that it's 75% women. They're all working to empower women, but I mean, most of these companies are run by men. As you can see, of the 40-person board that they have, some hold double positions. There are no women that hold double positions on the board. Only 30% of the entire board is female, representing the 75% industry. As we know, most of the people in the organization are the ones who are making money are at the top. So these individuals that are founding these companies, they're technically in the business of exploiting a lot of single mothers or those who do get involved. It's not just single moms, obviously. There's still 25% of the American industry that it is male. And there are some markets around the world where it's upwards of 60% that are male in these direct selling companies. So it's not, it shouldn't just be characterized as that, but it's certainly concerning in that manner. And it's often cast as like a women empowerment thing, but it seems like when you actually dig into the numbers, it's not doing that at all. It's a false flag. TINA, which I had mentioned previously, they did an audit of all of the DSA companies. So this is not all of the DSA companies. This is only a small handful. As you can see, Herbalife and New Skin and Longevity. I don't believe Beachbody is on here, but you have LifeVantage and Medifast and Forever Living Products and Amway. These are all like well-known names once you sort of get into the research of the MLM. All of the people who are sitting on the board use MLM pay plans. The Direct Selling Association claims that their members also include people that don't use this, but their entire board is made up of people that are only using compensation plans with an MLM structure. So they might exist. I don't deny that, but I mean, the people who are lobbying for this organization are not the ones that are off that plan. So, and then you also have the Direct Selling Caucus. So the Direct Selling Caucus includes both Democrats and Republicans in Congress. These are the representatives' names. If you have a representative on this list, I do recommend getting in touch with them. They typically only get information from the DSA in terms of formulating policies. There is a bill that's, I don't know if it's stalled or whatnot, but it was called the anti-pyramid selling legislation. Unfortunately, it doesn't really properly address the concerns, and it may also serve to protect many of these companies from legal issues. So it's worth contacting these people and trying to share the stories that you know, because I feel they often don't get told this information. Obviously, there's a ton of other money in politics that gets involved in this, but I do feel like the power of story is important. So these individuals are important to try to reach out to. If you're interested, I've put together a Twitter list. If you're interested in adding your representative from there as well, you can check out my information through Twitter. So going through that as an intro, as like a brief overview of some of the dynamics that are going on in this industry, that brings me into trying to explain, okay, so if we use the pyramid scheme model, how can we better explain it? Or how could we choose a different model to then describe to people about what's going on? So the one that I start with is the pancake model. The pancake model was brought to the attention of John M. Taylor when he was speaking with one of his sort of friends in Utah. John M. Taylor is he was a Church of Latter-day Saints member. He was an active member in that organization. And he was also a New Skin distributor. He came out of New Skin, which is a cosmetic and skincare program. It's very active throughout Asia. It has a large market in China, and was really impacted by a recent move by the Chinese to try to crack down on pyramid selling schemes. It interferes with their sort of indoctrination methods of Chinese communism. So they try to interrupt these organizations that are ultimately getting in the way of that. So they had a 100-day freeze period on any organizations that were selling nutritional supplements, because they were having issues with them creating this sort of mentality and idea around that. So New Skin was really hurt this year by that. John M. Taylor worked for that organization, and his wife was sort of able to convince him out of it. He turned against the organization as he became to better understand how it was developing. And this concept of the pancake model was introduced to him by, as I was saying, a neighbor in Utah. They were describing the fact that it didn't quite fit the mold of a pyramid structure, because as you continue to expand the structure, it flattens out and it becomes almost like a straight line when you talk about the number of people in a tier below the first 3, 4, 5 iterations of the pyramid. So he was saying these first 4 layers, yes, they model the idea of a pyramid, but as you get deeper into that structure, it ends up flattening out and stretching out to such a point where it just becomes this line with a little blip in the top. So they likened it to a pancake. So just to quickly go through that, this mini pixel here that I drew is a 0.1 size on Word. I did an expansion of 5, so that one pixel had to find 5 other pixels in order to join their network. And those 5 had to find 5, and it kept on going as an iterative process. By the 5th layer, I ran out of screen space. I had to wrap it back around in order to still see the pancake. There was 9 layers of depth here, which would include 3,125 people, and then 15,625 people in the next layer. Now, this is an important model to consider because it gives you a proper representation of, ideally, this is how these models would expand if they were able to accomplish what they were setting out to do, right? Sorry. If 5 people joined the company and were able to find their 5, who were able to find their 5, who were able to find their 5, ideally, this is how it would set up. And this ideal is monstrous. It is problematic. Just looking at it as a normal person, you could see, wow, I could make a lot of money if I'm at the top, but the vast majority of people who are going to get involved are not people who are making any money. So it's a good demonstration in that way, but it's not necessarily the most realistic because you don't have this symmetric progression, right? Most organizations are not growing symmetrically. You typically have longer legs stretching out of certain distributors in their model. Has that been your experience, Alonda, with Beachbody?
You know, looking at this, I would say absolutely. Myself, I think I was just, part of the line, but I wasn't able to create anything myself.
Yeah.
I really think that in terms of people get involved in these things, because I have seen late comers join Beachbody, but they already had a network. And if you already have influence, you can get people to join. But if you're just the average person that, is not an actor, because there was an actress, a Spanish actress who joined Beachbody, and she was able to rise up in the ranks very quickly. Well, you have influence. If you are the president of your sorority, you have influence. If you are a volunteer at your church and it's a very large church and everybody knows you, you have influence. So all of that, I think, is part of it, is the influence that you have when you join this.
Yeah, that's very powerful as well in an international context. If you have a well-connected family overseas and they have a number of distributors that are above them or sort of going to benefit from the expansion into a new market, you typically see those first entrants into that new market doing very, very well because they have the entire organization behind them into expanding that, right? It will fade out over time, but it's that initial sort of splash into a new country where you really see that kind of, like, those people are the ones who benefit, and they also become the success stories that you get to tell for those other people that are never going to have that same level of success.
Yeah.
So this is a valuable model. I know a number of people that prefer this model. I coined the term of the organization at the top as the butter on the pyramid. That's the one that sort of is the high fat kind of loving situation that people want to be in. Everything else below is the cake. It's the organization that people think that they're having all the fun, but ultimately people want to be in the butter, and it's just not going to happen. In many cases, of these 15,625, a very, very, very small percentage of them will ever find that success in this kind of model. So people appreciate it for that, and also the expansion rate. Like I was considering just sort of showing like the amount I would have to shrink the screen out in order to fit the full length of these lines, but I opted for this model just because it's also demonstrative of just how fast these organizations grow if they're growing ideally, which they don't.
Well, I think it's interesting showing this also because, if you are the butter, it's like, how much of yourself do you have to lose in order to stay being part of the butter?
Yeah.
Because I really think you have to lose like part of your humanity to
Right.
stay in this.
Right. And it's like we were just saying, is perhaps it's you're losing humanity, or you just lose touch with reality. Like you just don't look at the full picture, and you're only looking at the other people that are in the butter with you and the other people that are just below you, that you're convinced that if you find enough people for them, that they're going to be just as well off as you are. And you think that if I can drag those few people up, then I'm successful, right? Because no one else has made a millionaire, and if I get to make a millionaire, then I've changed the world already.
Yeah. And I mean, it goes back into they buy into the story, the myth
Yeah.
that
Yeah. The other model that I'll just mention, because I found it rather interesting. I haven't fully fleshed out this idea, but someone had sort of made a passing comment on Facebook about it looking like a volcano, and I don't think that there was much thought put into that comment because it was just a passing Facebook comment, but it really got me thinking about sort of how that could function as a representation of the industry. So a little bit of geography and social studies. I won't spend too much time on it. Again, I'm also not a specialist in this area, but volcanoes, if you look at a sort of description of them, obviously you have the magma chamber down below. What's happening is you have tectonic plates shifting. That shifting is creating pressure. That pressure builds up and creates more rock that falls into the magma chamber. That increase in pressure ultimately builds as it climbs up through the main vent in the volcano and will erupt if it is not dormant, right? That eruption will lead to slow moving lava that sort of creeps down the sides of the volcano, and you also have secondary cones that will sort of seep that eruption, but is not part of the main explosion event that takes place. And I wanted to think about sort of how can this properly demonstrate what happens in MLM, and I think in some ways it is very good at describing some of the sort of interesting mechanisms that take place inside the organization. So if you think about the magma being the products, this is what people think are the core of the business, right? This is what people think is really what's happening in these volcanoes, but really what's happening is there's tectonic plates that are shifting, right? That's sort of like the coalescing of recruits that are coming into the organization, right? Everyone thinks the product is the main sort of source of revenue in these companies, but it's not. There's something else that's happening that's driving that eruption that's going to take place. You have this explosion or this funnel up to the top, right? The way that you're supposed to do the business, right? This is the way that you get out to success. This is the way you make it up to the top of the pyramid. This is the formal compensation plan. This is the idea of duplication. If you follow these ways, then this is how you're going to find success. And of course, within that organization, there are some people that have their own sort of ways of building that success, and they lead people off on those branches, right? These are like the bonus tiers within Beachbody or some of those other mechanisms for which people can find success, and they sort of build their own little empires on the side of this main empire. But it ultimately isn't going to be as successful as that main route in a lot of ways. This area of explosion, right? It can be attuned to the idea that many top leaders will break off from this MLM, realizing that they sort of reach their peak of what is available. That they don't, of course, in volcanoes, they don't go off to create new volcanoes, but in this case, it's just sort of that sort of eruption of sort of pressure that's building up over time, that they're sort of sitting just below this area, and it's that top area of the volcano that blows up as pressure sort of reaches a breaking point. And then ultimately what people see on the news and that sort of thing when volcanoes happen is kind of these first party scientific studies that seem to sort of illustrate that things are all good, and that these people get lots of cars, and this wonderful new product is a miracle product for your skin, and in fact, like it's rather damaging. It's going to hurt you. But the thing that people mostly see are these sort of false claims that are made by the company.
I think it's very interesting that you have this eruption thing, and you mentioned the break off, because this is something I have definitely seen. For instance, I think you may have seen my videos that I did on Enagic, which is the water filtration MLM. And there are people, Darren and Mike are the ones that I've done the videos on, that they have their own little thing come to their webinar. And then after you go to their free webinar, you spend $149 because you're going to create your own business. Well, you're just paying to get this course, which is really put together poorly. And you don't even get the full thing, because the entire point is to then get you to get into Enagic. But then you're putting out Facebook ads, but you're not going to be able to bring in people like they can, because they've already built up, you know, quote, a reputation. They have the finances to do it. There's people like Ray Higdon. He has a group called Rank Makers. I have lifetime access to that. And he at one point was in MLM, but there's more money in trying to teach people how to create a successful MLM business. But they're not really creating many success stories. Now, the few people that do have success, yes, they will highlight those. And so then you are thinking, well, if I just work more, if I work harder and I follow this plan, then I'm going to have that success. There's people like Eric Worre, the Meltons, Nadia and John Melton. I mean, there's just so many people that are, you know, and I don't think there's enough focus on the fact that there's all these like little break-offs that are going on within the industry, because everybody who is in MLM, they're looking for that secret sauce. They're looking for what can make this work. And they're going out and spending more money, like I did, on all of these other things.
And there's not enough time. Like you see that the FTC is so slow to act on the companies themselves, because they have to go through the legal process in order for someone to also sort of pursue these other avenues of people that are exploiting these people that are so thirsty for success. Like this opportunity is sort of made within reach for people, at least in their concept, and they believe this story. And then it's just, it's not really there, but people keep telling you that, oh, you're just not working hard enough. You just need to find these solutions. Like, it's really simple. All you need to do is find two people, and then you're there, you're set, you're done. Why can't you just do this? All you need is the leads. All you need is a little bit more help. Why don't you take this course, or why don't you take this advice column? And it's those people that are sort of tapping into that, which are typically the ones who are at the top of this organization. Like, and they've reached sort of their peak level of performance. Like, typically within these organizations, there is a cap to their earning potential, and typically in order to satisfy them, they will sort of reorganize a little bit, but it's not as much money as they could be making, and they have a lot more free time because they don't have to do as much recruiting anymore. So they explore these other business opportunities that do exist. And I mean, I fault them because I don't agree with that in terms of a moral standpoint at all. But I mean, in terms of someone who's being trained to do business better, I guess that's what they're doing, or at least that's what they believe they're doing.
But they're part of the problem, because they're continuing.
I think that they're a major part of that problem, because the incredible issue of MLM is not the fact that people get involved, it's the fact that people stay far longer than they should. And a lot of the reason for that is because there's not enough customers that are naturally born out of this industry, because people can't find people that actually want to buy the product. They need to find other people who are convinced that they need to get this product in order to find the results that they're looking for, as well as if they want to get any money from this company, they need to be paying a certain amount or buying a certain amount of volume each month in order to be eligible for that commission. So the fact that these two systems are at play, then other people are exploiting that kind of operation. There was someone that I was talking to, he was talking about Amway and tool scams. And then it's a very similar idea in the sense that you pay for all the cassettes and videos and books, and they come on a regular basis through auto ship and that kind of thing. Like it's an insidious operation going on, for sure.
Well, I lost Dave. I don't think I mentioned that he's in Iraq teaching right now, and electricity there is kind of dicey. So we are scheduling another time to get together so he can finish up and we can continue our chit chat. And until then, remember that your story is important. Be sure to tell it. I know there's shame, there's blame, there's guilt, there's all kinds of reasons, excuses, whatever you want to call it, not to do it. But being silent isn't going to do any good. Being silent isn't going to help anyone. And if you would like to tell your story, if you'd like to be a guest, reach out to me, DM me on my socials. There's going to be links to that, in the description, or email me at therecoveringhunbot@gmail.com. Until next time.